Enough's enough. Yeah, I'm supposed to talk about how to move from the private sector to the public for a lawyer. First thing, you want to make sure, absolutely sure you want to make the change. It's one thing to go from like a clerkship with a judge to the private sector, but if you've been in the private sector, went to the public sector, and now want to go back to the private sector, it's much harder unless you've only been away a year or two. I mean, going in and out is okay for a year or two, but if you're 6 years, 8 years into public service, you've lost all your clients. You've lost contact with people. It's very hard to come back. So keep that in mind. Second, you must be committed to public service. You have to be committed to the goals of the office, department, or agency you want to go to. Otherwise, you're going to lose a good job you like and go to a job you don't like. Unhappiness is not a way to have a career. So make sure, talk to friends, talk to people, learn it. Now, this next section, if your movement from the private sector to the public sector involves a pay increase, skip the next few minutes. I'm going to talk about the opposite. If you have to take a pay cut, make absolutely sure of several things. First, with your partner or spouse, must be on board without question, or at least without significant opposition. It takes a lot of conversations, and I use the word plural, conversations, with that person in your life, because you are changing not just their income, you're going to change your lifestyle. Because I was at a law firm, loved it, great people, but I would come home 6:30 at night, 7, and you'll come home earlier, maybe at a public job, but you'll be subject to more public pressure. So there's all this balance you got to think about before you make that change. But the pay increase is something you really need to talk about, because at least a pay cut, trying to explain to my wife, I was going to spend 2 years running for judgeship, be out every night talking to people in order to take a huge pay cut, is kind of an anti-intuitive thing. And she wasn't enthusiastic at first. I don't know how enthusiastic she is today, but she was supportive enough that she knew I wanted to do this, and I'm not even going to get into why, but you got to have that conversation, because changing your job but losing the person you love the most is not, for divorce or whatever, it's not good. I mean, it will hurt you in your life. So that's very important. So if time's available, save some money, if you can. Now, maybe maximize your 401k, or I know that's hard when you're paying off student loans. So say you're just out of school less than 10 years. We just had a case in the Ohio Supreme Court where the man and the wife owed $900,000 in student loans. So making the decision to take a public sector job, which generally pays a little bit less, certainly, than a private sector, but not always, is a big deal. And if you have children, have you saved money for college? Or are you going to count on the government giving loans and stuff because now you're earning less? So you got to think all these things through. Now, if it's elective office, now that's all what we talked about just applies for both appointive or elective office. Now we're going, if you're going to run, okay? You have to make sure your current employer in the private sector, you've discussed with them or with somebody all these issues. One, who's going to cover for you? When I was running, I was still at KMK, somebody had to cover some hearings for me. Is the firm going to be okay with that, or the business you're at? Are they going to know you're going to be time out of your office? Even if you're, there's 2 people in here at least, who are president of the Cincinnati Bar, there's time out of your office. And if your people in your company or your firm aren't with you, that's not a good thing. They have to be supportive. Will there be a temporary pay cut? because your hours are down, right? Something to think about. And will this hurt? If I say I run and lose, the fact I was gone so much, is that going to hurt my chances to make partner, get a bonus, all those things? You need to discuss it. It's hard to discuss, and sometimes you want to slowly wade into the subject, but you've got to discuss that if you're going to move from the private to the public sector. The other thing you need to ask yourself, are you really committed to the electoral process? It's not fun. In the fall of 10, I was a full-time partner at Keating, Meath, and Kleekamp with a nationally wide practice. I traveled all over the country. I was running statewide to be president of the state bar, and I was running countywide to be a judge on the 1st District Court of Appeals. My first piece of advice, don't do that. Okay, that's really stupid. And my wife would tell you, and it was almost debilitating. It was overwhelming, and you're overreaching for everything because you can never make up because you're missing this, that, or the other thing. And time. They talk about moving, location. Time. There's only only one thing you really have in your life. It's time. Time for your family or whatever. So you got to take that into consideration. Also, for elective office, absolutely sure family's on board. Now, does that have to be the whole family? I think it's got to be your partner or spouse, for sure. It depends on the internal workings of your family. At least no one can have opposition. Because if you got your family member out there opposing you, you're opposing whoever's running against you in the election, they're going to quote your family member. But not just that, it hurts. And so at least you need to talk to certainly your older kids and make sure that they're okay with it. And then you got to think to yourself, I have small children. Well, yeah, your absence matters, right? But maybe you'll be less absent if you have a different job than your current one. It's trade-offs, but you got to think about that during the campaign. Spouse or partner, are you going to be away a lot? I always joke with my wife, Jane, because I drive up and down 71 all the time. When I get to Wilmington, which is the 50-mile marker on the interstate, I call and say, okay, get the boyfriend out, I'm almost home. And she laughs. Not very much, but she laughs. Teenagers. If you're not around, the mice will play. It's something to consider. But the one thing I almost forgot to do, but I did, and it helped. I made my family promise not to look on social media other than my account on Facebook or whatever. No matter what you do, and even if somebody says something negative about you, it hurts them more than it hurts you. It really does. And they get all fired up, and then you try to have to calm them down or deal with it. Just don't read the blogs. Don't read, the comment section, even on your own Facebook page or Twitter or whatever. But you got to ask them to please do that because it's just going to upset them. And are they okay with parades and photographs? Parades are one thing, walking around, but they may not be interested. That's fine. There's a lot of people. Family won't walk with them on parades. I'm not talking, but it's really like family photos. Some teenagers are not going to want their photo in some brochure, right? But you want to show your whole family because you're proud of them. And it's also good politics. So that's something you got to think about and talk about. And even if it's, your 14-year-old teenager committing to one day on a Saturday to have photos taken, it's something to think about. But it's more than just the photos themselves. It's that relationship with your teenager you got to care about. And last, before deciding to head into public life, talk. Who are you going to talk to? Talk to those already or who have previously served, whether it's appointive or elective office, in that position. Find out what it's really like. Otherwise, you might leave a good job for not so great. Even though you like the concept, the job may not be what you think it is. Talk to close friends who will be brutally honest with you. Will I fit in that job? What do you think? Could I handle it? And if somebody says no, and somebody you trust, think about it. Because it may be beyond you. It's hard to accept. Lawyers, well, we lawyers have pretty good egos. And to be told you can't do something is heart-rendering. It really is. But you need to listen to those people because you may end up in a position where not only you'll be uncomfortable, you may not be able to handle. And that will hurt you the rest of your career. Although you'll learn a lot. Then after you've talked to all these people, think about it again and again before plunging in. I made the decision in 2004. I remember knocking on my head because it's the only piece of wood I had at the time. That if I was going to talk to my wife and if she would agree to a big change in my life, I'd become a judge. I didn't run for anything till 2007, and that wasn't even my choice. The county party asked me to run for city council. And I did. It helped me with them. But I learned a lot about running for office. But that wasn't what I really wanted to do. I wanted to be a judge, and I knew I had to run. So I finally ran in 2010, and notably, by the time even 2007 was there, my only child was out of college. Because somebody wanted me to run for something in 2006. I'm not going to discuss it really because it caused a little friction. But Casey was just finishing school. Why? Why would I change things too soon? I'm trying to show you the breadth of what you're going to have to do to make this decision. It's very broad, and I'm sure I've missed some things, but I think if you hit all these issues, you'll have a good way of deciding, do you want to do this? And if so, I really want to do it. And that will help you in the transition if you want to move from private to public service. And it's up to you. I want to thank you, and I think I'm going to run again. Maybe. Thank you.